of Education has received the final report regarding the recently discovered misappropriation of athletic funds. I'd like to cover that here now in a prepared statement. The board's directive was to review three primary issues. Did the identified employee misappropriate additional funds? Did others in the organization misappropriate funds? And outline recommendations for enhanced financial controls. The report's findings identified no additional significant financial variances. No witnesses knew of the misappropriation of funds prior to the discovery or engaged in similar conduct. Key recommendations in the management response for additional financial controls include converting as many student athletic and activity fees as feasible to online collection methods, researching, analyzing, and proposing a new system for collection of gate receipts at school functions, modifying the current event reporting form to collect additional information and provide training as to its required use to staff, utilizing technology more expansively for accounting and transaction systems. That's our prepared statement. If there's any questions after the board meeting, the Superintendent Simic or myself will be willing to talk then. Thank you. On to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. A number of different updates for the board today. One, and importantly, the turf field is complete. If you take a look out there, it looks fantastic, and we should be ready for another 10 to 13 years of varied competitions out on our new turf field. The facility master planning process continues. In a meeting tomorrow, we will review the final survey data and review feedback from the visits and then summarize what observations were on that. We expect to have, this is all tentative, but preliminary conversation with the board in October, community meetings in November, and then to come back to the board in December with what we heard at the community meetings. I expect a final presentation from the committee to the board sometime in February. Summer school is also in full swing. We have 299 students taking 19 different classes. Of note, we have many students taking a new class that's being offered. It's called the Common App and Essay Writing class. And this is so students, juniors, can take care of their Common App and get their essay written before the school year even begins. Anybody that's had a student that entered their senior year and didn't have that done will appreciate how stressful that experience was and be glad to not have that facing them. A number of other students are in bridge classes, which allow students to scaffold up to another level of coursework that they wouldn't otherwise be able to gain access to. I also have one very important logistical update. We've learned that there is a road closure that has been announced for Deer Path Road. It is a state-run viaduct project, and this is warming everybody's hearts as they listen to this, and it will last as much as 18 months and begin in October and continue until April of 2021. Because it's a state-run project, the timing around that is flexible and uncertain, and the number of lane closures is unclear. It will certainly have an impact on any and all bus travel, east and west across Deer Path. There's also a project plan for the viaduct under 176. We're hopeful that those two projects do not coincide. We don't expect that the state would do that to us, but we will wait and see. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? All right, seeing none, we have the strategic plan end of year report.
So this is intended to be a high-level overview of the strategic plan. A great deal of the The close work, if you will, the finer points of conversation take place in Ed Committee or in other meetings that we have. And so to avoid repetition of that, I wanted to hit some things that aren't part of our conversation in Ed Committee in particular. The milestones drive all of our work, these 6 milestones. We are in the process of finalizing KPIs, so we have a number of tentative KPIs. Each of those we believe is very important. One that is yet to be determined is an SEL measure. We still don't know. Everybody agrees that it's important, but exactly how to measure it remains sort of the holy grail for us. But this is important work, and these will ultimately feed back up into moving us closer and closer to achieving our milestones as well. A brief overview, the milestones 1 through 3 and 5, these are things that we really did address very specifically in either this board meeting or in the Education Committee, Career Connections, milestone 5, leveraging community partnerships and expanding our external outreach. Jim Sullivan spoke in a great deal of detail there, and then milestones 1 through 3, these varied analyses, we've talked about those as well. So I'm going to focus on milestones 4 and 6. Some of these things are things that really we do look at as having a long-term quality impact on our entire organization. So our hiring processes, we've completed that. We've written it down and then applied it throughout the district. So each of our positions, there's a level of rigor there, just like with background checks and whatnot. This is part and parcel of a process, and formalizing it was actually very important for us because there is a tendency to have something of a catch can. We wanted to move away from that type of approach. We've also established the faculty, staff, and administrator onboarding and mentoring process, so that has been done. Our job descriptions for all of our positions are now completed. And there's a shared interest that we've talked about over many years with the board and then also with our staff that we provide quality professional development. One of the things we heard over and over again was that our support staff really felt like they were being left out. And what we hear from our teachers is that professional development is sort of the lifeblood, if you will, of their learning opportunity. And so really pleased to see, as part of our conversation with our high school union this year, that their level of professional development spending has been on the rise, a steady increase over many years now. Milestone 6, the master facility plan. I mentioned that briefly in the superintendent's report. The visits to the schools, we had 2 days of interviews where the architects came in and sat down and spoke with any staff that wanted to share anything with them, and a number of students. They also went into the lunchroom to talk to students. Sometimes students engaged them, sometimes they engaged the students. Probably one of the best pieces of feedback that we've got, to give you a specific example, one of the things that we've spoken to at the board level for quite some time is the adult program downstairs, and the frustration with the quality of those facilities that we have, probably the worst instructional spaces that we have in the district. As a result of these meetings, one of the staff members came up and said, you should not be improving West Campus. You should be looking at spending the same money or less to buy a building downtown, a house in downtown Lake Forest, and outfit that for our adult students. They can walk to all of the jobs that they would have, to be integrated into the community. That's one of the reasons why you do these types of processes, because these really simple, and as soon as you hear it, brilliant ideas come out of that, and you don't know where that's going to come from. So we've got student and staff surveys that are now completed. Our next meeting is to review the gathered data. Another thing that we have going on is a comprehensive review of our entire instructional program, including our student reports, supports. This is an external review that we're going to bring in this year to look at how we're serving students, what the value systems are, what holes we have in terms of our professional development for our staff, and then where the growth opportunities are for the entire instructional program. And this is all in an effort to reach all students, so this will apply to every single student in the district. There are places where we are really excelling in our supports, but there are other places where we're sure that we're going to find some growth opportunity there, and so we're going to bring in an outside expert to come in, provide the review for us, and then give us ongoing feedback on how we implement that deeply and purposefully. So this is a high-level, long-term view of some of the strategic things that we're doing in the district for ongoing improvements. So with that, I'll field any questions you have, or move on to our action items.
I like the example you used of using what you learn to find out some things that you otherwise wouldn't have encountered. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Good. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We also have here a post-issuance tax compliance report, but I don't think there's a report on that. I think if there's any board member questions. Okay, all right, moving on then, we're going to move into committee reports, starting with the Education Committee.
Aside from the Education Committee having set the dates which invitations went out from Eileen today, we haven't met. Our meeting will be in October to start the school year.
Yeah, October 16th, right?
Correct.
Okay. Finance and Ops Committee, Sally?
Finance and Ops Committee met on June 24th, where we reviewed the draft budget that will be on the agenda for this evening. The remainder of the notes of our meeting were circulated, and if you have any questions about those, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, the notes are then available as part of the report of today's proceedings, and then they'll be voted on as minutes at our next meeting, which will be in October.
Great, I appreciate that. Make sure everybody's reading those notes when they go out. That's part of our new attempt to make sure we understand this stuff prior to these meetings. All right, the Policy Committee, Ted?
The Policy Committee has not met since our last meeting, and we are looking to set up a schedule for a joint Policy Committee meeting with the District 67, probably in the next month.
Great, thank you. Ed Red, John?
Yeah, so just a couple things. The details for some of the minute are going to be included in the minutes, but as far as Ed Red was concerned, they brought our attention to a couple of the new laws that were signed and implemented. And one of them was that we discussed briefly was Senate Bill 28 around the 5-hour day for emergency. If the school day gets canceled, some options that now are available to the schools. So it's stuff that's essentially being looked at by the administration. We'll look at it further as it comes to us from the school. The other two issues that Ed Red brought up, and again, thanks a lot to Sarah Hartwick, who'd spent some time in explaining some of the details in these things, but basically Ed Red's going to be taking a fairly active role with the property tax task force that is going to be led by the governor's team, but Ed Red has a seat at the table, and they've got, I think, a good view on how things are going to hopefully go over the next 6 months, and they're fighting for the same things I think we would like them to, which is essentially not creating winners and losers in the state property tax, however it might end up. So I think we've got a good advocate on that side. The other issue that they talked about was looking at unfunded state and federal mandates. It is not something that's been updated since 2010. Sarah and her team are putting together an updated list of unfunded mandates and the costs associated with them. So we should see something in the fall that should allow them to bring or propose basically maybe a laundry list of these mandates that we could hopefully look to lobby the state to say we'd like some relief on this. So we'll see where that goes, but two good fights that I think Ed Red will help in terms of lead us in terms of where we might develop or create some resolutions in the future. So that's about it, but the other laws and those things are that'll be attached to the minutes. So that's it.
Thanks, John. We're going to now move into our action items. First, I want to bring up the adoption of resolution to display 2019-2020 tentative budget May I have a motion to adopt the resolution to display the 2019 to 2020 tentative budget?
So moved.
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Ms. Zinzer?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. The next motion. May I have a motion to approve the settlement agreement for student A?
So moved.
Guys, I apologize. Yeah, I forgot the discussion. Yeah, so I apologize, everybody. The former practice that we are going to continue is we will make the motion and then see if there's any questions, and then we'll bring it up for a second, okay? So I'm assuming the tentative budget, I need to go, I'm sorry, I want to go back on that. So I want to reopen the motion. I know we just approved it, but I want to reopen in case there's questions for the 2019-2020 budget. Did anybody have any questions on that? All right, so may I have a motion to adopt the resolution to display the 2019-2020 tentative budget?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Ms. Zinzer?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. And for any of those folks who might be watching at home, obviously, we talk about some of these things either in the Finance and Ops Committee itself or has a board with questions directed to Jen or Sally as directed. So many of these things are discussed. In fact, most of these things are discussed at length outside of this meeting here. At any rate, moving on. I'd now like to call for a motion to approve the settlement agreement for student A. So if I could first have the motion and then the second, then we're going to talk about it, and then I'll ask for a roll call vote. So may I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Does anybody have any questions on the settlement agreement for student A? Okay, seeing none, let's move into a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Ms. Zinzer?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next, may I have a motion to approve the addendum modifying the Director of Teaching and Learning contract?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions or need any clarification on this motion?
I just clarifying, this is a cleanup based upon the change in the law that's already part of the contract, so it's just codifying the language to be compliant with the law, correct?
Yes.
That was my understanding.
That was mine too. It's not an optional, I guess it's not an optional amendment. It's something that we have to do to maintain compliance. That's what just to clarify, anyone who's watching, that we're not just lockstepping in with what they've done. Perfect.
Very good. Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Ms. Zinzer?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Next is modification of the Director of Special Education contract. So may I have a motion to approve the addendum modifying the Director of Special Education contract? But before we get that motion, per the same question, Mike, can you add any color to this?
Okay, Rebecca?
So yes, it is actually what Dr. Nemekis stated, but also it was our error in just being silent on the last year of their contract in the initial time that you saw it, so the 21-22 school year. So by board adopted policy, I want to say. We do give them the 8% TRS, but we were silent in the contract, and per TRS law, we need to be very clear in our contracts. So this changes no compensation package, it's just changing a date to align with the 3-year contract.
It's pretty clear. So may I have a,
So moved?
okay, in a second?
Second?
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Ms. Zinser?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, we have a motion around, and to approve the 2019-2020 compensation for non-shared services, non-union support staff. Are there any questions or need for clarification on this? Okay, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Ms. Zinser?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great, moving on. Next, we want to talk about a wellness instructional director. So we want to have a motion to approve the wellness instructional director, 1-year contract. So may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, this is something we've talked about a bit, so I think everybody should be aware, but in case there's any need for clarification, or you want some clarification here, we can have it, just let me know. Okay, seeing none, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Zinser?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. So although there wasn't a policy committee meeting, this next policy committee update was discussed at a prior meeting. So now we're asking for the approval of what was discussed then. So may I have a motion to approve the second reading of press issue 105-year updates as presented?
So moved?
Second.
Any questions or need for clarification? Okay, seeing none, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Ms. Zinser?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the human resources report as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, again, this is in our packet. Anybody has any questions or need for clarification? All right, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Ms. Zinser?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. So now I'm going to move on to the consent agenda items. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items, including approval of disbursements, payrolls, and financial statements for May 2019, approval of designation of depositories, minutes of a regular meeting and workshop, June 10th, 2019, minutes of an executive session, June 10th, 2019, disposal of audio recordings, July 10th, 2017, and JSSC meeting, June 20th, 2017.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any need for clarification or any questions on any of this? All right. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Ms. Zinser?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Now moving on to the FOIA request. We've had 2 FOIA requests. Dwyer Law Office, status complete. Young America's Foundation, status complete. Moving on from the FOIA request for announcements, I have some dates here. Wednesday, August 21st, 2019 is the approach of the school year. That's an institute day. No student attendance. Thursday, August 22nd is an Institute Day with freshman orientation, so freshman students that day. Friday, August 23rd will be the first day of school for all students. And then Monday, September 9th, 2019, will be the next Board of Education meeting here at the West Campus at 7 p.m. So with that, may I have a motion to adjourn the Lake Forest Community High School Board meeting?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a voice vote, please?
Aye.
Aye. All right, meeting adjourned.